Welcome to Season 7 of CX in the Wild. We're happy to have you back on the adventure with us again.
Welcome back to CX in the Wild. Today, we're thrilled to have Jim Payne, the Director of Product Marketing at RingCentral, joining us. We'll be diving into the findings of a recent RingCentral study on customer service frustrations and discuss how AI can address these issues. Jim, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad we're past that intro part where, I'm reading a script, because I really just like to get into the real authentic conversation and hear more about what you're seeing out there in the market, what you're thinking. And why don't we start, just for context, let's just tell the audience just a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jim Payne, Director of Product Marketing at RingCentral, like you said, very much focused on the RingCX product line and our different artificial intelligence solutions, which are a part of that broader solution set. I've worked in and out of hosted communications and customer experience for a very, very long time. Started back in the UCaaS days when everybody was just taking their PBX out of the closet and putting it in the cloud, that kind of thing. And I'm really grateful to see the proliferation of cloud technology and actually how it's making an impact in a lot of different industries. I've also spent a few years working in machine learning and AI, and I'm really glad to bring sort of that context to RingCentral just to say, hey, here are the different things we can do with AI inside the customer experience. And just as a side note, I actually used to be a call center agent when I was in college. So a lot of this cool tech that I see come out, I just think, oh, wow. How great would this have been if I had this back when I was 19 years old and answering calls off of a queue in a call center?
Jim, you're already going to be one of my new BFFs. I've spent the last year going around the world, specifically interviewing frontline agents in some of the most dangerous cities in the world, because I feel like the voices and the experience of frontline agents are so central to the industry, and they're often go unheard. And whenever I encounter someone who has been an agent and gotten to where you've gotten and is having the influence on the industry that they have, I feel like there's a special gem here. So we're going to uncover some of that. But before we do, I would be curious to know about, there's been your perspective on the transformations, excuse the buzzword, of AI in the industry. Of course, ChatGPT hit. There was like a huge awakening to the potential of AI. As you know, there was AI prior to that, algorithms prior to that. We had been converting text to speech for a little while in the call center industry. But I happen to know, because I've been following the RingCentral story, your new RingCX entrance into the market earlier or late last year really kind of brought a lot of these technologies together. And that wasn't always the case. RingCentral, you were one of the first to really combine a lot of these different solutions together holistically. And I say that, one, so that you can correct me if I'm a little bit off base there for our listeners to have a better accurate view. But where I'm going with this inquisition, if you will, is at these shows everywhere, we see everyone with AI. There's like so much AI and so many people combining different pieces and parts. Which parts work, which parts don't. I happen to know RingCentral has a great sort of more mature new entrance to the market. Can you put things into perspective for us from ChatGPT's entrance to now in the industry? What's small, medium, large, or big, better, best? How should we be thinking about AI in the call center?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think having a really combined approach is really important from where I'm sitting. Even when ChatGPT came out and went very broad, went very public, and everybody got very, very excited, it was clear to me that just, okay, wow, they have a partner program. We are going to see an explosion of different point solutions come out that are going to be trying to solve or automate or provide assistance in any number of ways, right? And a lot of them can be really cool and they can do some cool things. There are obvious scale issues with any public model, I guess not public, but sort of consumer level model, right? Because it's looking through trillions of parameters, right? That you don't actually necessarily need, especially inside of the contact center solution, right? Like if I'm working a call center and someone asks me about return policies, if it's powered by something like ChatGPT, it's going to be scraping the whole of the internet basically to understand what the return policy is for this very specific thing, which is very expensive when it comes to compute power, you name it. So really cool to see more bespoke models coming out, smaller things that are, just running through billions of parameters as opposed to trillions. So much more cost effective, much more precise, and you can actually tailor it to a specific use case, which is handy. And then also there's that notion of, like you said, okay, speech to text. I think that's a big thing as well. And anytime I think about anybody modernizing their contact center or anything with AI for that matter, it's important to take a holistic approach to it as opposed to cobbling together point solutions. And I'll give you just one example inside the contact center is why this is important. Transcription. Okay. You think about transcription and hey, is one transcription engine the same as the next? And I think the temptation would be to say, yeah, they're the same, right? But they're not. If you look at one point solution, for example, it might plug into your telephony, plug into your contact center, and it will transcribe all the text. But what it's doing is listening to a whole conversation, like a blob of sound, and it's trying to parse out who's saying what, et cetera, which is difficult. And it can affect the quality of the transcription. If you're using something like RingCentral, where it is more a holistic solution, where we are the underlying carrier, that transcription engine is actually listening to every single call path, which makes it a lot easier to say, hey, we know exactly who is talking because they are on this leg of the call. Dennis is on this leg of the call. We know what Dennis is saying. We know what Jim is saying, and we can be a lot more accurate. And so much of that transcription is where a lot of that value is derived inside the contact center in particular, just, for anything, like whether you're automating something, whether you're providing assistance in real time to an agent or insights on the back end. That transcription and the quality of it is very important.
So is it safe to say that there is a flood of, I'm just repeating back, the flood of point solutions, RingCentral, you put together in RingCX some proprietary point solutions in a way that's contextually relevant at the right size and scale for the industry, for the market, for the utility of the call center to provide solutions that enhance agent capability, provide a path for greater customer experiences. And it really is a way for all of this data to be utilized in future forward opportunities like training, agent assist, and the transition from these short duration calls to longer duration calls in the industry?
Yeah, that's a decent way to say it. We obviously have a lot of different ways we can use AI, but because we are a comprehensive solution set, you can use something that's going to apply to you or not, and it can be very, very transformative. We certainly see customers left and right who are mostly just finishing up their cloud migration, right? Maybe they're still working on that, and that's fine. That's a great place to start. And as they evolve, they can actually develop and add some of the AI goodness that we're providing to actually do a lot more.
Well, thank you for letting me get the backstory to contextualize things. But what we're really here to do is talk about the truth. And I think that's where I was trying to lean in is I see at the shows, a lot of people say they have the solution that you have. They're moving quickly towards it, but it's not really fully baked up. So I just appreciated that contextualization. But we're going to be talking about some truths in this research paper about customer support and some of your strategic insights. And let's start with this recent study conducted on customer service frustrations. Why was it done? What were you guys looking for? Give us the backstory there.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we just wanted to understand where the breaking points are in a lot of ways. What are customers thinking about? What do they care about? What are they feeling? And simultaneously, what are agents feeling? Because that customer experience is sort of part and parcel to the success of the contact center and the company as a whole. So we really wanted to dig in deep to where they were experiencing pain and understand where we can apply different points of technology to mitigate that pain, make a better experience for the customers, and see how we can create those feedback loops with AI where we say, okay, how can we make the agents better, which will make the customers better, which will give us better data, which will make the agents better. And then it just continues to improve itself over time.
Now, just devil's advocate, and you can always say pass to any question because it is CX in the wild, just say pass. this research that you did to find these truths, to find this feedback loop, is this research, well, let's talk about where did the information come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So we obviously partnered with a firm to actually do it because that way it mitigates bias, things like that. So we partnered with a third party company to actually do all the outreach, manage all the data, do the data collection because that mitigates the bias and things like that.
Right. And because I think what I'd be wondering is, with all the data that you have as a case study, did you take this outside study and then correlate it with inside intelligence and find universal truths, or was it sort of an outside looking in? What was the perspective on the data?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the insights?
Yeah, more outside looking in, right? I mean, we're not trying to, I think I'm always hesitant to try and confirm my own suspicions on anything. I just want to know the truth. And that's why we do these surveys. So obviously a lot of good respondents, which we thought was really interesting, a lot of interesting data, some of the big insights we found, just even how many people are frustrated with customer experience and customer service. I would have assumed quite a few, but when I saw 97% out of 6,000 respondents, that was a pretty staggering number to me. I just thought, oh, wow, like that's a lot. And I suppose I would consider myself among their ranks, in a lot of ways, just to say, yeah, like sometimes when I call customer service, I have a pretty bad time and I get a little worked up. So it kind of makes sense when you think about it. But yeah, that was something that was really surprising to me.
To your point, it's sort of surprising, but also, I guess, enlightening in that I was having this conversation. My mom is having this challenge with her phone provider right now, and she's older. And she was like, I just don't understand it. And I was saying, when you have a business where there's 10,000 customers for every one employee, and no one employee even has a full customer, it's like they have fractions of customers. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to manage those. So let's talk about some of the leading sources of frustration in this customer experience, this customer service. And I think what I was pointing to there was with my mother, it's the automated systems that they actually don't even communicate with customers or understand the customer's needs. And they're managing a bunch of different parts of the business, silos, points of data, all the way back to billing. What other issues were you hearing about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those automated systems are a big, big thing. And I think we've all had those challenges, right? And we kind of talked about that already. These little point solutions that may or may not be fully integrated into the overall experience can be really frustrating, where let's say I want to just return something to a hardware store. It's basically just simple search functionality. It just sends me a bunch of knowledge base articles. I'm like, yeah, I know what your return policy is. I have the internet. Like clearly I'm working through this chatbot. And then finally it gets me through the escalation paths where I get to talk to a person. And now I'm talking to an agent and I have to re-explain my entire situation to them because it's a point solution, right? It's not fully integrated into an omnichannel experience where now an agent has all the context that I've already given the bot and they can just pick up where it left off. Like, that's a frustrating experience because now it feels like you're not just doing something once, you're doing it twice, and now by the time I've gotten to an agent, I'm already ticked off, and that's not very good at all, right? So we see that happen a lot, and it's because these data are siloed, or these data points are in silos. You've also got different technologies that are not communicating well with one another because they might be from different providers. They're not necessarily designed to communicate well with one another. So that's really problematic. And that's where we see AI playing a pivotal role in sort of fixing that, especially if you have more of a comprehensive solution. That's where it becomes very important as well.
So AI is supposed to fix some of this. Let's talk about where AI is making a difference today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the ways right out of the gates is just in that level of, we think about it in different pillars, right? But one being automation. So something better than a simple search chatbot. If you're managing a good knowledge base because of generative AI and things like that, you can actually automate a lot better as opposed to just doing what we said earlier, where it's sending people some simple search that says, hey, here's a knowledge base article on this thing that you've probably already read. You might even be on that page while you're talking to the chatbot, right? So outside of that, and I'll even use a different example, but one that was very, very good. I was using just a third-party travel company, right? Needed to change my flight. Couldn't quite do it with the airline, needed to do it through them. Started up their chatbot. and I finished everything. I mean, got better options for the flight, understood the differences between price, and actually booked it all through a chatbot in maybe under a minute. Right. And that is really, really cool. And for me, that experience really stood out where I'm like, oh, wow, I've done that before over the phone. And that experience was 10 minutes on hold, a few minutes talking to a person, verifying my identity, blah, 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 which I've already done in this case through their online portal, just by logging in, like it's already done, which is really, really great. And it's a very different experience. So for me, I got something that was very effective and very efficient. And I didn't have to spend a bunch of time on the phone. And for that company, they didn't have to waste an expensive resource of a person doing something that's fairly straightforward and simple that would take a long time to do over the phone or via chat or something like that. So that level of automation that we're seeing that can be applied in a very effective way is just step one, even just deflecting that level of work to keep it off of the plate of the agents. And even once it gets to the agent, right? I mean, you can automate a lot of the stuff that they're doing, like dispositioning calls, for example. You may not have to do anymore. Note-taking, action items, writing that to your CRM, all that menial stuff that ordinarily takes a lot of wrap-up time where you could be taking more calls or helping your customers. There are people on hold, like, oh, wow, all that goes away. That's a big thing for agents. That menial stuff is so boring, and I think we've only scratched the surface on what we can automate there, right? With artificial intelligence. Long term, I sort of see a world, I have this vision of a world where, I don't know, maybe if you are returning something, you actually do have to talk to an agent, right? If the AI gets good enough, it can actually do all that for you. I mean, generate labels, talk to the shipping department, say, hey, we need labels sent to this, and automatically send all of those things without any human intervention of any kind. And it's not like that replaces a bunch of people. It just makes them so much faster, right? And I don't think anybody's going to complain about shorter hold times and faster results when they call customer care.
I love the utopia that you describe and the utopia of now, because to hear that you've done this, some of the things that come to my mind, and I just would call on you as a director of product marketing because you solve these challenges. Is part of the challenge in the industry the fact that we had a thing called chatbots, but we still call them chatbots, but then ChatGPT is a chatbot? But it's not really the same thing. There's been a transition of engagement or relationship through these windows. It is a little bubble that goes back and forth, but it's so much more than that. And I just say that because as a director of product development, I'm imagining you. I'm imagining you a couple years ago. You see these things on the horizon. You have visibility into the point solutions. You see, because of your experience in the industry, you know what the current challenges are. And from your place in experience in the business, in the entire industry, you have the vantage point to see these solutions coming. So you match up this incoming future, these existing challenges, but from the perspective of an agent. So there's like relevancy and destination between AI and the future and the present. How did you assess, the priorities, the positioning, and in that, you certainly had to have said to yourself one time, we're calling these like 12 different things a chatbot.
Yeah, that happens all the time, right? I mean, even in the early days, it was just call center, right? And it's like, oh, well, it's not just calling, it's contact center. And then you talk like there's a multi-channel and omni-channel. It's like, oh, we can do SMS and voice. Like there's constant transformation, and those shifts in nomenclature it's something that everybody has to navigate, right? And now even with artificial intelligence, it's like, okay, this is, and even with how critical extensibility is and the way these different systems are going to talk with one another, it becomes more than that, where it's like, okay, is this a contact center solution, or is it really more of a platform for customer experiences, right? And we're constantly trying to keep our eyes on the horizon and understand what that means, because new categories even start to pop up all the time. Like even a long time ago when it was just hosted PBX or cloud PBX or VoIP or whatever, right? And that's kind of what it was. But outside of that, then it's like, oh, wow, now it's video. It's more than that. It's more than just a protocol. It's a full way for people to communicate and collaborate with one another. So then we see new categories like UCAS pop up, and Gartner has to start thinking about new metric quadrants or whatever. And it's the same in every industry. So yeah, I constantly just have my, and especially in AI, because it's moving at light speed, absolutely. Especially as the compute power gets cheaper and more accessible, we're just going to see more and more changes. So yeah, we're constantly thinking about it. And really that platform piece is going to be a big one in the future, just in my mind, just given the extensibility of everything and how critical that is.
I love that this is why I love doing this show, because I learned these simple things that will stick with me. You're right. It's not just a call center or a contact center. It's like a touch point center or a platform like you're describing. And so much more now than ever, these centers or these hubs of communication, to your point, are becoming omni-channel. There was a time, I think, in 5 or 6 years ago, where I felt like customer experience was splintering away into like marketing and e-commerce and call centers. And now I feel like it's all sort of coming right back to this holistic approach. And AI is certainly doing that. You're leading sort of the pack in this area of weaving AI together for a holistic platform. But I've just thrown out a bunch of jargon. What does that really mean? For like, if I wanted to describe that in a way that the audience could recognize a holistic omni-channel program platform from somebody who is just describing it as, the future.
Yeah, from this audience, and I think that future is we're on top of it in a lot of ways. It's not about writing a bunch of code or anything like that. It's just the central brain behind the experience that everybody's going through. So for a customer, they're just getting this really nice experience. They don't understand why. The why from the contact center perspective is that you have a really good solution set behind the scenes that is integrated with your system of record in a very effective way, whether, Zendesk or whatever they're using, right? And when you talk about that really embedded experience where you have an agent that says, okay, all this context is coming through, whether they're interacting with a bot, with AI, et cetera, I get one look at the customer. I understand exactly what they're talking about, no matter what, regardless of the channel. And then everything stays right there, for example. And you get and then on the back end, your supervisors are going to get better analytics that are all powered by that same platform. So for me, it's like a node, it's that connectivity behind the scenes that if it's working well, people won't even realize they're interacting with it. From a customer's perspective, all they know is that they're interacting with maybe a chat window and then maybe with a human. All the agent knows is that, hey, I'm talking to this customer. I have all this really great information and my job is really easy and it's very effective to solve their problems and make good solutions for them. And I don't have to do any busy work or anything like that. So the answer is really in sort of the net result, less what it is, but so what, and what you get out of it. That to me is the really big piece that, who cares what it is? It doesn't even matter. What matters is what it's going to give you. And it can give a lot of those great things to people today, which is cool.
You're talking about a lot of practical solutions and giving it to people today. It makes me wonder, in this omni-channel solution, what are the most practical solutions that you're actually delivering today that close that gap between the research that you had done and these frustrations? Did you find that, okay, we have this research, we have this holistic platform, we sit right in the middle, and is it a full, like, snug as a bug in a rug fit, or are there some real shining examples of this is where the bridges are between the two?
Yeah, a lot of them are really, really close to one another. I'll just give you one really good example, right? Okay. Even just quality management. So when I was an agent, we had this experience where we had QA days, is what they were called, where our supervisors would sit behind us, plug into your phone with one of those like APP5 cables, right? And they would just listen to you do calls live for a couple of hours, which is a horrible experience for an agent because it may not be a good sample size. It may not be a representative subset of your calls. Maybe you're in a bad mood. You're obviously going to be nervous. Your boss is right there. It's also a huge time suck for your boss. They're just sitting there like there's bias involved where they're like filling out these manual scorecards or whatever. Maybe your bonus is tied to that. That's very problematic. We see other customers who are doing this where they even staff full-time people just to listen to call recordings after hours or the weekends, nights, weekends, you name it. Horrible experience for them just to fill out these scorecards. What we can do even just right out of the gates is just automate all of that with artificial intelligence. So program your scorecard, say, did the agent do this? Did they do that? Did they display empathy? Did they listen to the customer? Are they talking too much? Whatever. Right. And it's just going to listen to all those calls automatically. The agent doesn't have to deal with having someone sit behind them. They don't have to deal with that scrutiny. They don't have to deal with any perceived unfairness from their boss, not really understanding them or having some level of bias. So you get something that's fair. You get something that's comprehensive. And then the supervisors obviously don't have to spend any time doing this, which is very, very nice. They get robust and comprehensive analytics where they can look at every single agent or department and say, hey, are they doing the right things or are they not? And you know exactly the areas where they're going wrong. And now I can say, okay, what training do I need to put in place? Which agents do I need to work with? From which agents can I derive best practices? Who's doing really well? Like, let's listen to some of their calls. Let's take a look at this and talk to other agents and show everybody how well they're doing. So that even just right out of the gates, which is something that we do, is so powerful, not just for agents, but also for supervisors. And then the company as a whole gets better analytics around the customer experience. I mean, even looking at just CSAT scores or what have you, right? In the old world, you might say, I got a 3-4% take rate on this. We don't really know why people are angry. So we're just trying our best to make our agents feel really happy and make them be nice. Now, drilling down, you have everything and you say, oh, wow, like now we're able to look at all of our bad scores, all of our bad calls and know exactly why they were bad. And now we say, oh, this decision is now very precise. It's very actionable. We know exactly what we need to do and why we need to do it. And now we can measure the success of those initiatives over time and say, hey, did we do a good job? Did we not? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? It's so actionable. And like I said earlier, we just want everything to make itself better. And when you get those really good analytics, now you can put in new points of automation. Now you can help the agents even more. Now you get analytics on the back end. Hey, and then just continue optimizing and improving.
So as I was listening to you, I was thinking about some intrinsic qualities of what you were saying. When you remove the human supervision, we get nervous. We get stage fright if there's someone standing over our shoulder. It doesn't feel, it changes how we deal with the situation. And also because that system you were describing, it seems like it's not as accurate because the supervisors, like some might have a good day, some might have a bad day. They're switching. They might have already friendships in the office, political climate, all of that. And what I think is interesting from an intrinsic observation there is how the agents feel or how the group feels, and that has an effect on the performance metrics. And when you cannot see that nuance at scale, it's almost like not being able to see the weather pattern in your office or in your call center and not being able to make a decision on whether to take an umbrella or, a bathing suit to the beach. It's interesting that the AI gives us the ability to see not just in one office, right? But you can see from office to office. So finally you get full visibility using these tools. And to your point, that also must help any call center prioritize where the next best effort is for deployment of technology, investment, all those things.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's a perfect way to put it, right? If you're just looking at one subset of calls, if I look at the weather and I say it's got lightning and rain outside, and then I say it always is lightning and rainy here, like that doesn't make any sense. Of course, things change. An agent can have a bad day. It's better to look at the data comprehensively and understand, hey, there's a blip here. Now, I can tap into my empathy as a supervisor and say, hey, what was going on that day? Like maybe I can ask that person about, hey, you seem like you're having a bad day that day. No big deal. Like these seem to be outliers, on your performance metrics as a whole, like whatever.
I can't even tell you how many corporate offices I've been in where I wish this system was working for everyone in the office. So reading everyone's email and like getting a sense of that. I could ask you a general question about what do you think about the future, but really, honestly, Jim, what are you looking at? Is it safe to say that you've hit a new benchmark or a plateau for the industry. You've been one of the first to bring all these tools together, bring it to market at scale, deliver the value that was sort of dreamed of just a year and a half earlier. Here you are at market. You're a little bit ahead of everyone, but you're on a nice horizon. I say that because it gives you the chance to not run and rush to the next shiny object. You probably sit and you think thoughtfully, what is the next set of point solutions, or what is the next area of the spectrum of touch points or experiences? How do you think about that as a product lead?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it really depends. And I think we try to stay very, very flexible in that sense, because right now we're working a lot on different agent tools. And that's a big area of emphasis. And obviously things could change, but that for us is a big one, because that human in the middle of all this experience is a critical component. And I don't see a world where they're gone. They're always going to be there in my mind, because humans are more creative. We're just better at certain things that artificial intelligence will never be able to replace. It can enhance in a lot of ways. So that's where we're looking next, is enhancing that person, figuring out, hey, how can we make them more powerful? How can we automate more things that they need to do? How can we sort of build on their natural creativity and the power of the human brain, as opposed to trying to, I don't think you can't replace it, right? So how are we just going to make them faster? How are we going to make them smarter? How are we going to make those minds better and more effective?
That sounds very beautiful, but like, how do you really do that? Like, because I really agree with you. I hear a lot of people use the term human in the loop, but it is like, my car doesn't drive without me yet. If I take a hammer and a nail, it doesn't do its job without me yet. Mm-hmm. So we know that there is a relationship between these tools. But when you talk about improving the agents, it kind of makes my ears perk up. And I love that you're thinking about that. We've talked about, obviously you already have the observation and the training and the intelligence that creates a safer environment for agents, frankly, because the accountability is fair and it's equal and it's clear and coherent, and the decisions can be transparent. So I think by nature, the well-being of the agents is actually coming more into focus. But as you think about these things you're talking about, making agents' lives better, can you give us a peek as to like what's on the horizon in 2025?
Sure. I mean, this is going to be an oversimplification, but we talk to contact centers a lot who might have an agent who's worked there forever, right? Here's Ashley. She's worked here for 20 years. She knows everything, right? Yeah. Everything's up top in her brain. And now she's going to retire. And now everyone's scrambling because she's the guru. Everybody knows Ashley. Everyone knows she can answer just about anything. And now your supervisors have a human problem to solve, where they have to get Ashley's brain somehow documented and then transfer all that information into everybody else's brains, right? Make sure they know everything Ashley knows. Very, very difficult. We see companies sometimes pulling people out of retirement, trying giving them big bonuses, just say, hey, please come back until we get a good transition, right? One of the bigger ways that we'll see this enhancing the agent experience is just democratizing human knowledge. So instead of solving that human brain problem, all you have to do is manage a really effective database, right? And then I can take a brand new agent. I hire Jim off the street. I give him a 6 hour crash course in our company and just how to use the AI. Instead of me taking months and months and months to make my brain as powerful as Ashley's, all I need to teach him to do is use the AI, because the AI will teach him over time. Because as long as we have an effective database, if Dennis, you call in and you've got kind of a tricky, complex issue for me, but we have good information, the AI can actually tell me what to say in real time and spit it out to me and just put it on a screen pop and say, hey, Jim, Dennis is asking about XYZ. This is how you should handle it. And this is what you should say. And this is what you should do. And I can just say, oh, okay. And I follow those prompts, solve your problem. And now I know in my brain, because I've already done it. It's like I'm practicing with somebody holding my hand, but I'm still giving a really great customer experience to Dennis, which is a really big deal. So it makes onboarding easier. It makes my life easier. I'm not going to be as stressed. I don't have to remember as much stuff because the AI is going to surface to me and teach me. And then over time, it'll stick in my brain. But even right out of the gates, just be way more effective and have a much better experience.
And that's your job to bring that to reality. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see what you're going to do. I will say, I've really enjoyed you letting me pick your brain because you're right there in the thick of it. We're back to this research article because I think we've covered a lot of where we are and what some of the challenges are. But was there anything from the research that really stuck out in your mind that maybe we didn't cover in our conversation that we should just enlighten the audience around, other insights, what they should be paying attention to, your hot takes?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit funny, but I think some of the stuff, and I can pull up my notes here, but just some of the stuff that people would rather do than call customer service.
Yeah,
right?
let's talk about it.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of sort of funny, but also very insightful, where like, more than half the people surveyed would rather clean the bathroom, than talk to customer service. And I was like, wow, like that's kind of intense. But then I think about myself as a person and I'm like, I won't even pick up the phone to like order a pizza, for some reason. Like if someone's like, hey, we should get pizza from here. I'm like, do they have an app or like, do I just do it? Is there a web portal? Like, oh no, you have to call. I'm like, oh my God, I would never. And that's kind of one of those funny things. Like people don't want to call customer service, right? They want, I don't know, if my router's broken or something like that, I want to just open up some web portal and like be able to interact with that in some way that will fix it, and we see some of that exists already. But that was something that I thought was very funny and interesting. Obviously, it is a big frustration, but 2/5, I believe, said they would rather go without internet for an hour, and some people said they'd rather like have an infestation of mice in their home, like 1/5, and deal with that. And setting mousetraps and things and baiting mousetraps instead of calling customer service, which is crazy, right? Because like you're just calling to like fix a problem, but it can be really frustrating. And when customer service is applied poorly, and I get that, I mean, I've been working in technology a long time. I've had some really agitating, experiences in that same regard. And people deal with that all the time, and it gets me wound up. I spend a lot of time and I'm just like, geez Louise, and maybe I'm no closer to having my problem solved. And that's frustrating. And then we even see in the data too, like a lot of those customers are not when they have an experience like that, they do not want to patronize your company again. And that is really concerning, right? We can laugh about the stuff people would rather do than call customer service. But now when the rubber meets the road, if you're not providing them a good experience, they might not come back, which is yikes. It's so important to do something good for them and make sure they're happy.
I want to jump in on that with you because not only what you're saying is true, bad customer experiences, bad service is something we want to avoid, and we can go to great lengths. But I think we all cringe when we think about, and from my perspective, the bigger the enterprise, the more I cringe about my mother's problem or whatever. The bigger or more complex the more complex the industry is, the more I'm like, I don't want to touch that word for any reason. But what I'm thinking about is this all this complexity and things that we want to avoid. Oh, now I lost my train of thought. See, my alarm went off. I'm going to edit this out. But when we think about what people would rather avoid, then go to, that's what I was going to say. So here's the thing. Not only do we want to avoid it, the power of the customer. I've literally been on a customer support call and been so frustrated while on the call. It was for my burglar alarm. I literally just opened up the competitor's website and started filling out their form and booked time. And I played this little game with myself. They'll either solve my problem before I can finish out this paperwork, or if they can't solve it, when I hit send, I'll just hang up this call and have the other people come out and start the problem all over again. So the reason I bring that up is the size of organization needs this solution more, the bigger, or do you think every business, like where's the sweet spot?
I think every business is not about the size of the company. It's about the complexity of what they offer.
Okay.
In my opinion. And everybody could take advantage of this in one regard or another. If you're an under-resourced company, if you're a little bit smaller, that's great. You're going to be able to give some really, really great customer service to your folks and help grow your business. And that's amazing. If you're a really big company, you're going achieve all kinds of different efficiencies and different points of automation that are just going to make you more efficient, help your bottom line, help your top line, et cetera. If you're publicly traded, that might be something that you're thinking about. And this is an effective way to do that. So it depends on your goals, depends on the complexity of what you sell. But for the most part, I would say if you are anywhere from if you have customers and a customer service team, you can take advantage of these things and they're going to make your life better.
So I on that note, I'll just say, here's something that I don't know if you knew this, but I'll share it with you. Not only have I been following the RingCentral story and the RingCX story, I recently became a RingCentral and RingCX customer myself because I've been going around the world talking to agents on the front lines. I've had some agents from other countries call me up and say, "Hey, can I get a job?" And I say, "Well, I don't have a call center or anything." And they were like, "Let's just get RingCentral and do this thing." So I'm like, "All right." And the reason I tell you that story is, as people want to adopt these technologies, RingCentral makes it possible for a person at my size to take advantage of this for three agents anywhere in the world. And I'm not very complex, of course, but you're saying that a large multinational complex company who could really take advantage of these full-blown AI tools, I don't want to say democratize because it's that everybody use that, but you've made it accessible to a wide spectrum of people. And I say that because it sounds like not only the rich can have to be the ones with these tools, but having said that, everyone's on a budget. Can you help me understand how do we know where to invest in these tools and how to justify them?
Yeah, I mean, even if you wanted to, let's say your customer service org is strictly a cost center and you don't think about growth at all, right out of the gates, you could even just look at total cost of ownership on RingCX and say, okay, this is actually probably going to save us money. A big reason for that being we are the underlying carrier. We aren't going to, charge you a bunch for your minutes, things like that. So you get better predictability there, and it's something more affordable. We see a lot of folks just try and nickel and dime you. We believe in simple pricing, something simple that is going to make sense. You see a PRI bill from some large carrier. It's 300 pages long. You're like, oh my gosh, what is this? We're not interested in that. That's not for us. We like simple pricing. It's easy to understand. So even from that perspective, you're just going to save money right out of the gates, and you're still going to get the most reliable solution that is available on the market today. I mean, our ops team is so stellar. The SLAs are great. The performance is great. You could just even listen to our company talk about that in any public forum, right? We're proud of our uptime and performance because it's a big deal. So that's area one, even just from savings. From the second perspective, I mean, I don't know any company that's has all the agents they need. And they're like, yeah, we have all the agents that we need. They always show up for work. They all perform and they're all super reliable and really great. It's just not the case. It's not the reality we live in. So even in that sense, you're going to see a lot better efficiency, a lot better coverage, even just from analytics, understand, hey, we have the right people in the right place. They're talking to the customers when we need them, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I mean, we could talk about this till we're blue in the face. We sat down with a multinational company just last week, right? We're talking about how we're going to, fix a lot of different problems for them that they have, just migrating kind of a location, geography by geography sort of deployment phase, just to get everybody on the same page and make sure that all their customers are getting routed where they want. Even something as simple as that can be very, very effective.
So thank you for that. I think what I'm taking away from this is, and it's challenging for me as a podcaster to bring the audience the moment in time where everything changed. So all I can say is where I was first exposed to this was last fall, speaking to your organization about what you were doing with RingCX, really sort of planted a mile marker, a milestone in the evolution of our industry. And I'll just say, I go around everywhere talking to different people. There's different factors of this happening everywhere, but I was very impressed and excited to be able to tell the RingCentral and RingCX story. So let's say this has been around for a year. And now that you're here and we're talking about the product, the solutions, the market, and the match to the the research that you've done to say, hey, we know this is an overall industry problem. Here are the solutions that fit. And for you to be thinking about the agents as you go through this process. And I think it means a lot to me that the agents are still central to this whole, no pun intended, central to this whole story. But also the fact that you've somehow, and this is the last thought I have, and I, I want to crystallize, is the solution isn't, while it is enterprise, it's not exclusively enterprise. You somehow have done the same thing that you've managed to harness the technology at scale to make it available to everyone. And that's just, it's a little different. And I don't know if you know that. Maybe you're like, yeah, we did that on purpose. But I see a lot of these solutions that the tiers, the entry points are so high. And how did that, was that an intentional thing or was it a lucky strike thing? Can you just... It's okay.
I mean, if you sat down with Vlad, our founder, a quality user experience and simple administration it's in his DNA. That's a big, big deal for us. And, when we say enterprise, it's funny. I think a lot of folks technologically conflate enterprise as using something with an inherent level of complexity and administration. Mm-hmm. And it's like, those two things don't have, like, those ideals do not have to commingle. And we talk to enterprises a lot who are like, hey, we have these managed services contracts where I have like these certified technicians and engineers. And anytime I want, to add a new license, it costs me an insane amount of money because the complexity is so high and someone has to go do it. And it's really, really difficult. And we think, okay, why? Just because you're a big company doesn't mean it has to be hard. It can still be easy, even from an administrative perspective. And like, you don't need those massive contracts. And that can even be a massive point of savings, right? Time savings. One of the first, I worked for a very large company a long time ago, and I still remember getting my first desk and the voicemail. I mean, this is forever ago in like the on-prem PBX. So it's an oversimplification, but like we had to wait for this guy, Tim, to change my voicemail because he was the guy who knew all the weird codes and things like that. Yeah. So I had to sit there and I had someone else's voicemail greeting on my phone, saying their name was in the phone tree, all the extensions. It was someone else for weeks until finally Tim came around and I was like, okay, I'm going to get to this now and I'm going to fix this for you. Whereas with something like RingCentral, if I need to add an agent, I need to call somebody. I can literally do it from my mobile device and just say, hey, I need to add an agent real quick. Bing, 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 done. And it's over now. And we put them in the queues. We assign their skills, you name it. And that's so much easier. And like, that doesn't mean, just because it's very easy and simple to do does not mean that it is inherently not an enterprise solution. The end result is the same. The road to get there is just much, much easier because of technology and good design, things like that.
You epitomize this lesson I've been sharing with my son recently. If you can't say it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And you explain this so simply. At the core, you're trying to deliver easy to the market. And in your quest to do that, your teams, you have been first on this path to deliver the first wave of these integrated solutions. You verified it by doing this market research just to make sure that your easy was aligned to the hard in the market. And you're looking forward to sort of cloning the best brains of the entire organization, the smartest agents, and making that also easy for everyone involved in the business so that ultimately customers have it easier. So Jim, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me today. Anything you want to ask me a question?
No, thank you for having me. It's really nice. And I love what you said. Like, technology should never get in the way. And if it's getting in the way of anything, what's the point? Then you need better technology, in my opinion. So would love to. Yeah, I'll talk to you about this anytime. I care a lot about it.
Watch out, because I might be just calling you up to nerd out about it. Jim, thank you so much for being on CX in the Wild. I cannot wait to share your story. And what I really think I'm excited to do is to break some of this conversation down and explore certain pieces of it, because we have said a lot of jargon, but I appreciate that you've taken the time to contextualize it and give me some simple points of reference for the audience. And again, it's just been an honor and a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, you as well, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to access other podcasts, YouTube videos, or join Dennis on other adventures around the world, be sure to connect with us at www.globalvoiceofcx.com. Until next time, stay curious.